My name is Megan Bailey, and at 28, I thought I was finally getting my dream wedding. For years, I planned every detail down to the napkin colors. Then I discovered my parents had given my dress, my venue, and my entire wedding day to my younger sister. The worst betrayal wasn't just losing everything I'd saved for, it was being expected to smile through it. Before I dive into how my family betrayed me and how I finally stood up for myself, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours. Ryan Thompson walked into my life during a charity run 4 years ago. I was volunteering at the water station when he jogged up, completely out of breath. Instead of just grabbing water and continuing, he stopped, introduced himself, and asked for my number right there, sweat-drenched running clothes and all. There was something so genuine about him that I couldn't say no. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant where we talked until the staff started cleaning up around us. By our 1-year anniversary, I knew he was the one. The proposal was nothing short of magical. Ryan took me hiking at Sunset Point, my favorite trail. At the summit, with the sun painting the sky orange and pink, he dropped to one knee. The ring was his grandmother's, a vintage sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. When I said yes, a photographer Ryan had secretly hired captured the moment. That night, surrounded by candles at our apartment, we started dreaming about our wedding day. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in my sister Amber's shadow. She's 3 years younger than me, but somehow always managed to be the center of attention. When I made honor roll, my parents would nod in approval. When Amber made honor roll the following year, they threw her a party. When I graduated college, I got a nice dinner. When Amber graduated, my parents gifted her a 2-week European vacation. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. But the pattern was always the same. My achievements were expected, hers were exceptional. My parents, Diana and Frank Bailey, never seemed to notice the disparity in how they treated us. If I ever brought it up, they'd dismiss it as me being too sensitive or competitive. So when Ryan proposed, I was determined to plan a wedding that was truly mine, something I could be proud of without comparisons. We decided to save for 2 years to afford everything we wanted. Every extra shift I picked up at the hospital where I work as a nurse went straight into our wedding fund. Ryan, an architect, took on freelance projects on weekends. We were building our dream together, dollar by dollar. The search for the perfect venue took months. We toured places all over the state, but nothing felt right until we found Oak Ridge Estate. The moment we drove up the tree-lined driveway and saw the restored Victorian mansion with its wraparound porch and gazebo overlooking the lake, we knew. The venue wasn't just beautiful, it felt like us. The coordinator, Tina, was wonderful, working with our budget and helping us secure our date, June 12th. We put down a non-refundable deposit of $5,000, nearly a quarter of our savings, to lock it in. The dress was another journey entirely. I visited 7 different bridal shops before finding the one at a boutique called Everlasting Lace. It was a vintage-inspired gown with delicate cap sleeves, a sweetheart neckline, and intricate beadwork that caught the light when I moved. The moment I stepped out of the dressing room, my best friend Kayla started crying. Even the no-nonsense boutique owner seemed moved. I felt beautiful, elegant, and completely myself. The price tag was steep, $3,200, but after trying it on, I couldn't imagine wearing anything else. I put down a deposit and arranged monthly payments to have it paid off 3 months before the wedding. With the big elements secured, we hired Stephanie, a wedding planner recommended by 3 different couples we knew. She was organized, creative, and understood our vision perfectly, elegant but not stuffy, personal touches everywhere, and a celebration that felt intimate despite our guest list of 120 people. Together, we selected a color palette of dusty blue, silver, and white. We tasted cakes from 5 different bakers before choosing a 3-tier white chocolate raspberry creation from Baker's Delight. I spent hours on DIY projects, hand-lettering place cards, designing our programs, and creating photo displays of our relationship journey. When I first shared our plans with my family, they seemed supportive. My mom helped me look at flower arrangements, and my dad promised to contribute $5,000 toward the wedding, a generous gift we factored into our budget. Even Amber showed interest, asking questions about the venue and volunteering to help with crafts, though she never actually showed up when we scheduled crafting sessions. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs. My mother would make offhand comments like, "Are you sure about this color scheme? It's not very exciting," or "That dress is lovely, but don't you think something more dramatic would suit the venue?" At the time, I chalked it up to her having different taste. I never imagined there was another agenda forming. The first real shift happened when Amber announced her engagement to Jason Reynolds, her boyfriend of just 7 months. Jason came from a wealthy family and worked in finance. The ring he gave Amber was massive, a 3-carat diamond that she made sure everyone noticed. At their engagement dinner, which my parents hosted at an expensive steakhouse, Amber talked nonstop about her wedding vision. Strangely, many of her ideas sounded eerily similar to mine. Right down to the dusty blue color scheme I had chosen months earlier. "We're thinking a June wedding," she mentioned casually. "There's something so magical about early summer weddings, don't you think, Megan?" I nodded, uncomfortable with the coincidence but not wanting to seem possessive over a month. After all, June was popular for weddings. It didn't have to mean anything. That night, as Ryan and I drove home, he squeezed my hand. Is it my imagination, or was Amber basically describing our wedding? I noticed that too, I admitted. But it's probably just because she's been hearing me talk about it. I'm sure once she starts planning, she'll develop her own vision. How wrong I was. 3 months before our wedding, strange things started happening. First, my mother offered to store my wedding dress at their house. "Your apartment is so small, Megan," she insisted. "The dress will get wrinkled, or something might spill on it. We have plenty of space in the guest room closet." The suggestion made sense, especially since our apartment was cramped. I'd been keeping the dress in its garment bag, hanging on the back of our bedroom door where it was constantly in danger of being bumped. So I agreed, dropping it off the next day. Mom promised to keep it safe until my final fitting, scheduled for 1 month before the wedding. A week later, I received a puzzling call from our florist, Paula. "I'm just confirming the change in your order," she said cheerfully. "The switch from white roses to pink peonies will add about $400 to your total, but they'll be stunning with the new color scheme." "Wait, what?" I asked, confused. "I didn't change my order. And we're not changing the color scheme." Paula paused. "Oh. That's strange. Someone called yesterday, I assumed it was you. They had all your information, including the contract number." My stomach dropped. "What name did they give?" "Let me check. The note says Diana Bailey called on behalf of Megan Bailey." My mother had changed my flower order without telling me. I thanked Paula, asked her to revert to the original plan, and immediately called my mom. She didn't pick up. Instead, she texted back, "In a meeting. Call later." That same day, our cake baker emailed to confirm that we'd switched from raspberry filling to lemon curd, and that we needed the cake 1 week earlier than originally planned. Again, the change had been requested by my mother. When I finally reached her that evening, her explanation was breezy. "I was just exploring options, honey. I thought the peonies would be prettier, and lemon is more refreshing than raspberry in June. But if you're set on your original choices, that's fine." "Mom, you can't just change my wedding details without asking me," I said, trying to stay calm. "And why would the cake need to be ready a week early?" "Did they say that?" "How strange. Must be a misunderstanding." Her tone was dismissive. "Don't stress about it. Everything will be perfect." But the incidents continued. The DJ called about a playlist change. The rental company contacted me about switching from round tables to rectangular ones. Each time, the changes had been requested by either my mother or, increasingly, by Amber. Ryan grew concerned as he watched my anxiety build with each new misunderstanding. "Something doesn't add up," he said one night as I paced our living room after discovering our photographer had been asked to reschedule. Why would your mom and sister be making all these changes behind your back? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe they're trying to help, but going about it all wrong? Ryan looked skeptical. Have you checked with Oak Ridge recently? Make sure everything's still set with the venue? I hadn't thought to do that, assuming the venue was the one thing that couldn't be altered without my signature. I was wrong. The next morning, I called Tina at Oak Ridge Estate, just to ease my mind. Hi Tina, it's Megan Bailey. I'm just checking in on everything for June 12th. A pause. June 12th? Let me pull up your file. I heard keyboard clicking. Actually, Megan, I show that your event was moved to June 19th. The change was processed last week. My heart nearly stopped. What? I never requested that change. Who authorized it? Let me see. It says here that Diana Bailey called, explaining there was a family emergency requiring the date change. She provided the password on your account and paid the date change fee of $1,000. We sent a confirmation email. I checked my email immediately and found nothing. I never received any confirmation. That's odd. It was sent to bailey93@gmail.com. That wasn't my email. It was Amber's. After hanging up, I called my friend Kayla in tears. They're hijacking my wedding, I sobbed. My own family is going behind my back and changing everything. Have you confronted them directly? Kayla asked. This is beyond inappropriate. It's your wedding. That evening, I drove to my parents' house, determined to get answers. I found my mother and Amber sitting at the kitchen table with bridal magazines spread out between them. They looked up, surprised to see me. What's going on? I demanded. Why are you changing all my wedding arrangements without telling me? And why was my venue date moved? My mother had the audacity to look confused. What are you talking about, Megan? We've just been helping with a few details. Helping? You changed my flowers, my cake, my photography schedule, and somehow moved my entire wedding date without my knowledge. The confirmation was sent to Amber's email. Amber at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but my mother simply sighed. You're overreacting. With your work schedule, we thought we'd help with some of the coordination. The date change is actually better for everyone, more family can attend on the 19th. But it's not your decision to make. I was nearly shouting now. This is my wedding. Mine and Ryan's. You had no right. My father walked in, frowning at my raised voice. What's all this commotion about? Before I could explain, my mother cut in. Megan's upset about some small changes to the wedding plans. She's being a bit dramatic. Small changes? You moved the entire wedding without telling me. What is really going on here? The three of them exchanged glances. My father cleared his throat. Maybe we should all sit down and discuss this properly tomorrow. When everyone's calmer. I stared at them in disbelief. I want answers now. Why would you go behind my back like this? My mother stood up, her expression hardening. Fine. We need to talk anyway. Come back tomorrow at 6, and we'll explain everything. As I drove home, a terrible suspicion began forming in my mind. The changed date, the altered details, the secretive behavior, it all pointed to something more calculated than just helpful meddling. But even in my worst thoughts, I couldn't imagine what they would reveal the next day. The next evening, Ryan insisted on coming with me to my parents' house. Whatever they have to say, we should hear it together, he said, squeezing my hand as we pulled into the driveway. I was grateful for his presence, especially when I saw not only my parents' cars but also Amber's sleek new BMW that Jason had gifted her for their engagement. My father opened the door before we could knock. Come in, he said, his expression unusually solemn. Everyone's in the living room. We followed him to find my mother sitting primly on the sofa, while Amber and Jason occupied the love seat across from her. The coffee table between them held a bottle of expensive champagne and 5 glasses. No one was smiling. "Sit down," my mother instructed, gesturing to the remaining armchair. Ryan and I squeezed into it together, my anxiety mounting by the second. My father remained standing, assuming what I recognized as his making an announcement posture, shoulders back, chin slightly raised. The same stance he'd taken when telling us about job promotions or family vacations. "Megan, Ryan," he began, his voice formal, "we've asked you here because there's been a significant development that affects everyone in this room." My mother jumped in, apparently unable to wait for his measured delivery. "Amber and Jason need to move up their wedding plans considerably." I looked at my sister, who was now sporting a small, secretive smile as she leaned into Jason. The implication was clear, especially when Jason placed his hand protectively over Amber's still flat stomach. "Okay," I said slowly. "Congratulations, I guess? But what does that have to do with all the changes to my wedding?" My parents exchanged glances. My father cleared his throat again. "The thing is, Megan, with their situation, they need to have a wedding quickly. Before Amber starts showing." My mother nodded emphatically. "We can't have people talking. You understand?" "I understand they need to get married soon," I said. "But I still don't see what that has to do with my wedding being rearranged without my knowledge." There was an uncomfortable silence before my mother spoke again, her voice falsely bright. "We found the perfect solution. Since you and Ryan already did all that planning for June, and Amber needs a June wedding before she gets any bigger, we thought, why not transfer everything to them?" I stared at her in disbelief. "Transfer everything?" "All the arrangements," my father confirmed. "The venue, the vendors, the theme, it's all done and paid for. Amber and Jason can simply step in. We'll reimburse you and Ryan, of course, and you can plan another wedding for later." The room spun around me. "Another wedding? Later? But we've been planning and saving for 2 years. And we appreciate all your hard work," my mother said smoothly. "You've put together something beautiful. But surely you can see that Amber's situation is more urgent." "Your sister needs this, Megan," my father added. "Jason's family is very traditional. They need to believe this was a planned wedding, not a rushed affair because of a pregnancy." Amber finally spoke up. "The venue is perfect, Meg. And I've always loved your dress, it fits me perfectly with just minor alterations." "My dress?" I whispered, the final piece clicking into place. "You're taking my dress too?" "It's at the seamstress now," my mother confirmed. "Just some slight adjustments to the waist, in case she's showing by then." I felt Ryan's body tense beside me. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You've cancelled Megan and my wedding, taken all our arrangements, that we paid for, and given them to Amber and Jason? Without even asking us first?" "Not cancelled," my father corrected. "Postponed. And we're offering to pay you back everything you put down." "That's not the point." Ryan stood up, unable to contain himself any longer. "Those deposits aren't just money, they represent months of searching, deciding, planning. You can't just transfer someone's wedding like it's a dinner reservation." My mother's expression hardened. "Ryan, I understand you're upset, but this is a family matter." "I'm about to become family," he shot back. "And you're treating your daughter, my fiancée, like her feelings don't matter at all." Jason, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Look, we didn't ask for this situation. But my parents are flying in from Europe in June, and they can't come back later in the year. This arrangement just makes sense for everyone." "For everyone except Megan and me," Ryan pointed out. I found my voice again, though it was shaking. "How could you do this? How could you take everything we've worked for and just give it away? Without even talking to us first? Because we knew you'd react like this." Amber snapped. "You've always been selfish, Megan. Always thinking about yourself first." "Selfish?" I echoed in disbelief. For wanting to keep my own wedding? A wedding is just one day, my mother said dismissively. But Amber's situation affects the rest of her life, and her child's life. Don't you care about your future niece or nephew? Of course I care, I said. But that doesn't mean I have to give up my wedding. There are other venues, other options. You could have a simple ceremony now and a bigger celebration later. With my parents coming? And Jason's family's expectations? Amber scoffed. Not everyone wants some basic backyard wedding, Megan. The room fell silent. I looked at each of their faces, my father's stern disapproval, my mother's calculated determination, Amber's entitled expectation, and Jason's uncomfortable but resolved expression. None of them saw anything wrong with what they had done. In their minds, I was the problem for not happily handing over everything to my sister. So what exactly are you asking me to do? I finally said. My mother brightened, apparently sensing surrender. Just to understand and support your sister. We're thinking you could even be her maid of honor. You know all the details already, so you could help everything go smoothly. Ryan made a choking sound beside me. I felt strangely calm as the full magnitude of their betrayal washed over me. You want me to be the maid of honor at what was supposed to be my own wedding? Wearing some other dress while Amber wears mine. Watching her walk down the aisle at my venue, with my flowers, eating my cake? When you put it like that, you make it sound so negative, my mother complained. I stood up slowly. I need to go. Megan, don't be dramatic, my father scolded. Sit down so we can discuss this reasonably. There's nothing reasonable about this situation, Ryan said, taking my hand. You betrayed your daughter in one of the worst ways possible, and you don't even see it. We have Amber's future to consider, my father insisted. Sometimes in a family, sacrifices need to be made. Funny how Megan's always the one expected to make them, Ryan observed coldly. As we walked toward the door, my mother called after us. Think about it, Megan. This is your chance to be a good sister. Don't ruin this for Amber out of spite. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The tears were coming too fast, and the crushing weight of yet again being considered less important than my sister was too heavy to bear. In the car, Ryan held me while I sobbed. We'll figure this out, he promised. We don't need them. We can still have our wedding, somewhere else, some other time. But all I could think about was my dress, my perfect dress, being altered to fit my sister's body. All my carefully selected details becoming her wedding, not mine. 2 years of planning and saving, gone in an instant. And the worst part? They expected me to smile and be grateful for the opportunity to give it all away. The week after discovering my family's betrayal was the darkest of my life. I called in sick to work for 3 days, unable to face anyone or explain what had happened without breaking down. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from my mother, alternating between guilt trips and demands that I'd be reasonable. Amber texted once, I need your vendor contact list. Send it when you're done being dramatic. Ryan was my rock through it all, bringing me tea, holding me when the tears came, and running interference when my parents showed up unannounced at our apartment. She doesn't want to see you right now, I heard him tell them firmly through the door. You need to respect that. This is ridiculous, my mother's voice carried through. She's acting like a child. No, Ryan countered. She's acting like someone who's been deeply hurt by the people who should care about her most. They left eventually, but the parade of flying monkeys began soon after. My Aunt Susan called, telling me I should be the bigger person and support my sister in her time of need. My cousin Mark texted that family comes first and I should let go of material things like venues and dresses. Even my father's brother, Uncle Dave, who I'd always been close to, suggested I was making too big a deal out of a party. None of them seemed to understand that it wasn't about the material things, it was about the complete disregard for my feelings, the assumption that my wants and needs would always come second to Amber's, and the shocking violation of going behind my back to dismantle my wedding plans piece by piece. On the fifth day, an envelope arrived, a formal invitation to Amber and Jason's wedding on June 19th at Oak Ridge Estate. The details listed were identical to what should have been my wedding, right down to the menu selections Ryan and I had spent hours deciding on. The invitation was addressed only to me, not Ryan, with a handwritten note from Amber: "Hope you'll stand beside me on my special day. I've always imagined my big sister as my maid of honor." I crumpled it up and threw it across the room. That night, Kayla and my other close friend, Tiffany, came over with wine and takeout. They sat with me while I raged, cried, and finally fell into exhausted silence. "You know you don't have to take this, right?" Tiffany said, refilling my glass. "What they're doing is legitimately insane." "But they're my family," I said weakly. "Maybe I should just give in. Keep the peace." "Keeping the peace has been your job your entire life," Kayla pointed out. "How's that working out for you?" Her words hit home. From childhood, I'd been the peacekeeper, the one who stepped aside, who gave Amber the better Christmas present, the front seat in the car, the last piece of cake. I was the one who smiled and said it was fine when my parents missed my college graduation for Amber's dance recital. The one who said I understood when they forgot my birthday but threw Amber an elaborate party 2 months later. I've spent my whole life keeping the peace, I realized aloud. And what has it gotten me? They still think I'm selfish for wanting to keep my own wedding. The next day, I received a text from my mother with a picture attached. It showed Amber standing in a bridal salon, wearing my wedding dress. The alterations were already done, they'd taken in the waist and added some beading to the neckline. "Doesn't she look beautiful?" my mother had written. The dress was always meant for her. Something broke inside me. I called my mother immediately. "How could you?" I demanded when she answered. "That was my dress. I paid for it. I was making payments on it. And we'll reimburse you," she said calmly. Amber needed something quickly, and this was perfect. "You always said you wanted your sister to have the best. When we were kids and it was about toys. Not my wedding dress. Megan, I'm disappointed in you. I thought you'd be more mature about this. Amber is having a baby, doesn't that mean anything to you?" "Of course it does. But she could have found another dress. Another venue. She didn't have to take everything that was mine." "Well, it's done now," my mother said with finality. "The dress is altered, the venue is paid for, and all the arrangements are transferred. The question is, are you going to support your sister or continue this childish tantrum?" I hung up without answering. That evening, more family members called and texted. The narrative had clearly shifted. I was now the villain of the story, the selfish sister who wouldn't sacrifice just a party for Amber's reputation and future. No one seemed to remember or care that this party represented years of planning and saving, or that it had been taken without my consent. The pressure was intense. For a brief, weak moment, I considered giving in. Maybe it would be easier to just play along, be the dutiful sister and daughter, stand beside Amber in some bridesmaid's dress while she wore my gown and married Jason in what should have been my wedding. Maybe that would finally earn me the approval I'd been seeking my whole life. But then Ryan found me sitting on our bedroom floor, staring at nothing. He knelt beside me, took my hands in his, and looked into my eyes. "Meg, I will support whatever decision you make. If you want to be part of their wedding, I'll understand. But I need you to know something." He paused, making sure I was really listening. "You deserve better than this. You always have. And whatever you decide, I'm with you all the way." His unwavering support broke through my haze of confusion and hurt. For the first time, I saw with absolute clarity how dysfunctional my family's expectations were. How I'd been conditioned my entire life to put Amber's wants above my own needs. How I'd been made to feel selfish for having perfectly normal boundaries. The next day, when I was home alone, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was my grandmother Helen, calling from her new cell phone. Unlike the rest of the family, she didn't start with accusations or demands. "Megan, dear," her warm voice came through. I've heard there's quite a situation with the wedding. Would you tell me your side of things? For the next hour, I poured out everything, not just about the wedding, but about a lifetime of being second best, of sacrificing for Amber, of never quite measuring up in my parents' eyes. Grandma Helen listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of acknowledgement. When I finally ran out of words, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know, I've watched this dynamic in our family for years. Your mother did the same thing to her sister, your Aunt Carol." This was news to me. "What do you mean?" "Your mother always had to be the center of attention, always had to have what Carol had. When Carol got engaged first, your mother suddenly needed to get married right away. She wasn't pregnant, but she convinced your grandfather and me that her situation was more urgent." She sighed. "Carol gave in, just like you've always given in. And do you know what happened?" "What?" "Carol eventually cut ties with the family. She lives in Arizona now. We haven't seen her in 15 years. Her voice grew sad. "I've always regretted not standing up for her more. Not seeing the pattern until it was too late." Grandma Helen's revelation stunned me. I had vague memories of an Aunt Carol from my early childhood, but she had faded from family events before I was old enough to really know her. "The pattern repeats if you let it, Megan," my grandmother continued. "Sometimes loving someone means setting boundaries. And sometimes standing up for yourself is the healthiest thing you can do, for everyone involved." After we hung up, I went to our spare closet and dug out an old shoebox where I kept childhood mementos. Buried beneath yearbooks and achievement certificates was a small diary with a broken lock, my journal from high school. I opened it and began to read, transported back to a 16-year-old Megan who wrote about college dreams deferred because Amber needs the money for dance camp, about a Sweet 16 party cancelled because Amber has a recital that weekend, about a prom dress returned because Amber crashed the car and the insurance deductible has to be paid. Page after page documented the same pattern that was playing out now with my wedding. It hadn't started with the dress or the venue, it had been my entire life. And it would continue to be my life if I didn't finally stand up for myself. That night, I made my decision. I would not give in this time. I would not stand beside Amber wearing my dress in my venue. I would not pretend this was okay. For once in my life, I would fight for what was rightfully mine. I just had to figure out how. The next morning, I called Jessica Torres, a lawyer friend from college who specialized in contract law. I explained the situation, half expecting her to think I was overreacting like everyone else. Instead, she was appalled. "Megan, what they've done isn't just emotionally abusive, parts of it might actually be illegal. Those contracts were in your name. You paid the deposits. They had no right to transfer them without your written consent." Her validation was like a lifeline. "So what can I do?" "First, gather everything," she advised. "All contracts, receipts, emails, text messages, anything that proves these arrangements were yours and that they were changed without your authorization." I spent the day digging through emails, bank statements, and text messages. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence and filled it with screenshots and PDFs. I had proof of every payment we'd made, every contract we'd signed, and every unauthorized change my mother and sister had initiated. Jessica reviewed what I'd collected and confirmed what I'd hoped: I had legal standing to reclaim at least some of what had been taken from me. "The dress is the clearest case," she explained. "You have receipts showing you were making payments. Unless you formally transferred ownership, they had no right to take it to be altered. The venue and vendor contracts are a bit more complicated since your mother managed to get the changes approved, but there's still a strong argument that this was done fraudulently, using your personal information without consent." "What should I do?" I asked. "Sue my own family?" Jessica considered this. "Legal action is an option, but before we go that route, let's try something else. Sometimes shining a light on people's bad behavior is enough to make them back down." That afternoon, Ryan and I met with Stephanie, our wedding planner. Unlike my family members, she was horrified by what had happened. I had no idea, she said, genuinely distressed. Your mother told me the changes were approved by you. She had all the passwords and contact information. She shook her head. In 15 years of planning weddings, I've never encountered anything like this. Stephanie offered to contact all the vendors personally to explain the situation. Most of these people know me, trust me. If I tell them there's been a fraud perpetrated, they'll listen. Next, I called Tina at Oak Ridge Estate. When I explained that the date change had been made without my knowledge or consent, she was initially skeptical. Your mother had all the correct information, account passwords, contract numbers. We had no reason to question her authority. I understand, I said. But she had no right to make those changes. The contract was in my name, and I never authorized anyone to act on my behalf. After some discussion, Tina agreed to review the situation with the venue's management. I can't promise anything, she warned. But given the circumstances, we'll see what can be done. While I worked on the logistical aspects, Ryan focused on gathering statements from friends and family members who had witnessed my parents' pattern of favoring Amber. My college roommate wrote about the time my parents canceled their visit because Amber had a minor cold. My childhood friend described birthday parties where Amber always received more expensive gifts. Even Ryan's parents, who had only known my family for 4 years, provided examples of times they'd observed the unequal treatment. By the end of the week, we had compiled a comprehensive timeline of events, supported by documentation and witness statements. We had proof of every payment we'd made, every contract we'd signed, and every unauthorized change that had been initiated. What now? Ryan asked as we reviewed everything we'd gathered. I'm going to give them one last chance, I decided. One opportunity to make this right before I take more drastic action. I drafted a calm, factual email to my parents and Amber, outlining exactly what they had done and the evidence I had collected. I explained that I was prepared to pursue this legally if necessary but would prefer to resolve it within the family. My requests were simple: return my dress, restore my original wedding date and venue, and issue a sincere apology for going behind my back. The response came within hours, not an email, but a phone call from my father. His voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. Is this some kind of threat, Megan? It's not a threat, Dad. It's me standing up for myself. By saying you'll sue your own family? By trying to ruin your sister's wedding? It was my wedding first, I reminded him. And I didn't want to involve lawyers, but you've left me no choice. Nothing was taken from you that won't be replaced, he insisted. We've told you we'll pay you back for everything. It's not about the money. It's about respect. About acknowledging that what you did was wrong. The only wrong thing here is you trying to punish your sister for needing to get married quickly. Do you have any idea how this would look to Jason's family? To our friends? His concern for appearances over my feelings confirmed everything I already knew. This wasn't about helping Amber, it was about maintaining the family image at my expense. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said, surprised by my own calmness. But my position stands. I want my wedding back. And if we refuse? I took a deep breath. Then I'll have no choice but to make this public. His laugh was dismissive. Go ahead. Tell whoever you want. No one will side with you over a pregnant bride. After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time. My father's confidence that public opinion would favor them made me doubt my next step. Was he right? Would everyone see me as the villain if I fought back? But then I remembered Jessica's words, shine a light on their behavior. And Grandma Helen's encouragement to break the pattern. And the diary entries documenting years of similar treatment. That night, Ryan and I discussed my nuclear option, sharing our story publicly on social media. It was risky, family dirty laundry exposed for everyone to see. But what other leverage did I have? Are you sure about this? Ryan asked. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. I'm sure, I said, feeling stronger than I had in weeks. They're counting on my silence. On me giving in like I always have. Not this time. I spent hours drafting the post, revising it again and again. I stuck to facts, avoided emotional accusations, and included only the most clear-cut evidence. I didn't want to seem vindictive or hysterical, just truthful. When it was finished, I read it to Ryan one final time. It detailed how my wedding had been planned and paid for over 2 years, how my family had gone behind my back to transfer everything to my sister, and how they now expected me to be the maid of honor at what should have been my own wedding. I included screenshots of key text messages, contract dates, and payment receipts, with personal information blurred out. "It's perfect," Ryan said when I finished. "Factual, clear, and impossible to misconstrue. But should I post it? Is this the right thing to do?" Ryan took my hands. "Only you can answer that. But remember, they're the ones who did something wrong, not you. All you'd be doing is telling the truth." I took a deep breath, looking at the post button on my screen. Whatever happened next would change my relationship with my family forever. But perhaps it needed to change. I'm going to sleep on it, I decided. If I still feel this is right in the morning, I'll do it. That night, I dreamt of Aunt Carol in Arizona, living her life free from the family dynamic that had hurt her so deeply. I woke up with clarity and resolve. It was time to post the truth. With hands that trembled only slightly, I hit post at exactly 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. My carefully crafted statement, titled "The Truth About My Postponed Wedding," went live on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter simultaneously. I had tagged no one, made no accusations beyond the facts, and ended with a simple statement: "All I ever wanted was the wedding day Ryan and I spent 2 years planning and saving for." Instead, I was expected to silently watch my sister take everything we had created. I closed my laptop, put my phone on silent, and Ryan and I went for a long hike in the state park, deliberately removing ourselves from the immediate fallout. For 4 hours, we breathed fresh air, held hands, and reminded ourselves that whatever happened, we had each other. When we returned to cell service, my phone exploded with notifications. Hundreds of comments. Dozens of messages. Multiple missed calls. With a deep breath, I began to scroll through the responses. The support was overwhelming. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years were expressing outrage on my behalf. Former colleagues were offering help, everything from legal advice to new venue suggestions. Even acquaintances from high school and college were weighing in, many sharing their own stories of family betrayal and how they had overcome it. "I always saw how your parents treated you differently," wrote my high school friend Bethany. "This is just next level wrong. As a wedding planner myself, I am appalled," commented a woman I didn't even know. "No ethical vendor should have allowed this to happen. My sister did something similar to me," shared a college classmate. "Standing up to her was the hardest and best thing I've ever done." The post had been shared over 200 times in just a few hours. And then came the messages from the vendors themselves. Paula, the florist, was the first to contact me. "I had no idea the changes weren't authorized by you. I've canceled the order changes and will only proceed with your original plans, whenever you decide to reschedule." The cake baker, the DJ, the photographer, one by one, they reached out with similar messages. Many admitted they'd felt uncomfortable with the unusual arrangement but had been assured everything was approved by me. Most surprisingly, Tina from Oak Ridge Estate called personally. "Megan, we've had an emergency meeting of management after seeing your post," she said, her voice reflecting genuine concern. "What happened was a serious breach of our client protection policies. Your mother should never have been allowed to make changes without your written authorization, password or not." "What does that mean?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "It means we're reinstating your original date, June 12th. The venue is yours, as contracted. We've already notified your sister and parents that their June 19th reservation has been cancelled." I nearly dropped the phone. "Really? But what about their deposit, the money they paid for the date change?" "That's between them and us," Tina said firmly. "Our priority is making this right for you, our original client. Within hours, most of our wedding arrangements had been restored to their original state. But the personal fallout was just beginning. The first call from my family came from Amber, who was hysterical. "How could you do this?" she screamed when I answered. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The venue canceled on us. The florist won't take my calls. Jason's mother is asking questions." "I'm sorry it came to this," I said, surprised by my own calmness. "But you and Mom and Dad left me no choice." "We offered to pay you back," she shrieked. "We were going to help you plan another wedding." "That was never the point, Amber. You took something that wasn't yours to take, without even asking me. How would you feel if I did that to you?" "It's not the same. I'm pregnant. I need to get married quickly. And you could have done that without stealing my wedding. There are dozens of venues that do beautiful small ceremonies on short notice. But I wanted Oak Ridge. I deserved something special." Her words confirmed what I'd always known but never fully acknowledged. In Amber's mind, and in my parents' minds, her wants would always outweigh my needs. "I deserved something special too," I said quietly, and ended the call. My parents' response was more calculated. First came the threats, my father warning of family estrangement, my mother raising the specter of legal action for defamation. When those didn't work, they switched to guilt. How could I humiliate the family this way? Didn't I care about Amber's reputation? What would people think? "People will think you tried to steal your daughter's wedding," I told my mother bluntly. Because that's exactly what happened. The extended family was divided. Some relatives who had initially pressured me to be the bigger person now reached out with apologies, admitting they hadn't known the full story. Others doubled down, insisting that family loyalty should have kept me from going public. But the most unexpected outcome came from my dress designer. She had seen my post through a chain of shares and sent me a direct message. "Megan, I was heartbroken to read about what happened with the gown you purchased from Everlasting Lace. While I can't undo the alterations made to your original dress, I would be honored to create a custom gown for you, at no charge. Your story touched me deeply, and I believe every bride deserves to feel special on her wedding day." Her generosity brought me to tears. When I called to thank her, she explained that she'd experienced something similar with her own sister years ago. "Sometimes the best thing we can do is break the cycle," she said. "And sometimes that requires standing up and saying no more, even when it's difficult." Other offers followed. A different venue, even more beautiful than Oak Ridge, reached out with an available date in September and a significant discount. A popular local band offered to play our reception for free. A renowned photographer volunteered his services as a wedding gift. Even our original vendors stepped up. The cake baker designed a new, more elaborate cake at no additional cost. The florist upgraded our flower package. The DJ promised an extra hour of service. As word spread, strangers sent messages of support and encouragement. Several shared their own stories of family difficulties and boundary setting. Many thanked me for giving them courage to address similar situations in their own lives. By Sunday evening, 48 hours after my post, the narrative had completely shifted. What my parents had tried to dismiss as my selfishness had been recognized by hundreds of others as a reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. What they had tried to keep private, their blatant favoritism and boundary violations, was now documented and acknowledged by people whose opinions they valued. The following week, I received a stiffly worded email from my father. He didn't quite apologize, but he did acknowledge that certain actions may have been taken without proper consideration of your feelings. He also noted that Amber and Jason had decided to have a simple civil ceremony the following month, followed by a more appropriate celebration after the baby arrives. It wasn't the full accountability I'd hoped for, but it was something. A small crack in the family dynamic that had defined my entire life. More importantly, Ryan and I had our wedding back, not exactly as planned, but in many ways, better. Because this time it was truly ours, built on a foundation of respect, boundaries, and the knowledge that we were worth fighting for. As the dust settled, I realized something profound. In standing up for myself, I had finally broken free from the role I'd been assigned since childhood. I was no longer the peacekeeper, the one who sacrificed, the one who gave in. For the first time in my life, I had declared my own worth. And unexpectedly, that declaration had resonated far beyond my own family drama, touching others who needed to hear the same message. The wedding we would have would be different from the one we had originally planned. But it would be ours. And I would walk down the aisle not as someone who could be taken advantage of, but as a woman who knew her value and wasn't afraid to claim it. 3 months after my social media post changed everything, Ryan and I stood together under a flower-adorned pergola at Willow Creek Manor, the venue that had reached out to us after hearing our story. The setting was different from Oak Ridge Estate but undeniably more beautiful, with rolling hills and a glittering lake providing a backdrop that seemed designed for new beginnings. I wore a dress that surpassed even my original gown, a custom creation with delicate lace sleeves, a fitted bodice that flowed into a soft A-line skirt, and subtle beading that caught the September sunlight. The designer had incorporated elements from my original dress design but added personal touches that made it uniquely mine, including a small blue butterfly embroidered near the hem, symbolizing transformation. The guest list had changed. My parents and Amber were not present, having declined the invitation with a terse note about prior commitments. But Grandma Helen was there in the front row, beaming with pride. And beside her sat a woman I had only recently met, my Aunt Carol, who had flown in from Arizona after 15 years of family estrangement. I wouldn't have missed this for the world, she'd told me when we first embraced at the airport. When Helen called and told me what happened, and how you stood up for yourself, I knew I had to be here. The weeks following my public stand had been a time of intense reflection and healing. With Ryan's encouragement, I had started seeing a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. Dr. Melissa had helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just wedding drama but a lifetime of emotional neglect and favoritism that had shaped my self-perception in profound ways. The patterns we learn in childhood become our normal, she explained during one session. Until something happens that makes us question whether that normal is actually healthy. My something had been the wedding theft, but it could have been anything that finally pushed me beyond my capacity to accommodate. The important thing wasn't the trigger but the response, my decision to finally say enough. Setting boundaries with my family had been painful but necessary. After the initial flurry of angry calls and messages, my parents had shifted to a cold silence broken only by occasional formal texts. Amber had given birth to a baby boy in late August and sent a birth announcement with no personal note. I had responded with a gift and a card expressing genuine good wishes for my nephew, maintaining the door of relationship without sacrificing my newfound self-respect. Boundaries aren't punishments, Dr. Melissa reminded me. They're guideposts for healthier relationships. Whether your family chooses to respect them is their decision. Some relatives had taken sides with my parents, maintaining that I had overreacted and should have put family first. Others had reached out privately to share their own experiences with my parents' favoritism, thanking me for bringing the dynamic into the open. A few, like my cousin Jennifer, had taken the opportunity to examine and reset their own family relationships. Your post made me look at how I've been treating my own kids, Jennifer confessed over coffee one day. I realized I'd been harder on my older daughter than my son. I'm working to change that. The wedding industry community had been unexpectedly supportive. My story had resonated with many vendors who had seen similar family dramas play out in their work. Several had updated their contract policies to prevent unauthorized changes, implementing stronger verification procedures. Stephanie, our original wedding planner, had even written an article for a bridal magazine about the importance of respecting couples' autonomy in wedding planning. But the most profound changes had been within me. For the first time in my life, I understood that advocating for myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. That my wants and needs were as valid as anyone else's. That love didn't require constant sacrifice. As Ryan and I exchanged vows beneath the afternoon sun, I felt a lightness that went beyond the joy of marrying the man I loved. It was the lightness of authenticity, of being fully present in my own life without the burden of others' expectations. Our reception was smaller than originally planned but filled with genuine celebration. Kayla gave a maid of honor speech that made everyone both laugh and cry. Ryan's best man toasted to the couple who taught us all that true love includes standing up for each other. And when Ryan and I took to the dance floor for our first dance, the song we'd chosen, Brave by Sarah Bareilles, felt like the perfect anthem for our journey. Late in the evening, as guests mingled and danced under string lights, Aunt Carol found me by the dessert table. "I want you to know something," she said, taking my hands in hers. "What you did, standing up for yourself, refusing to be diminished, that takes extraordinary courage. I waited until I was 45 to do what you've done at 28. I was terrified," I admitted. "I still am sometimes. I keep waiting for the guilt to overwhelm me." She nodded understanding. "The guilt will come and go. That's how they programmed us. But each time you honor your own worth, it gets a little easier to ignore the guilt." She squeezed my hands. "Your mother and Diana are cut from the same cloth. They'll never fully understand why what they did was wrong. But that doesn't mean you have to keep accepting it." "Do you regret cutting ties with the family?" I asked, the question that had been on my mind since we'd met. Carol considered this. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret the relationships I lost. But I don't regret the peace I found." She smiled. And look. 15 years later, here I am at my niece's wedding. Some bridges can be rebuilt when the time is right and the foundations are stronger. Her words gave me hope that someday, perhaps, my own family relationships might find a new, healthier form. Not by returning to old patterns, but by establishing new ones based on mutual respect. As the night drew to a close, Ryan and I stood together on the venue's terrace, looking out at the moonlight reflecting off the lake. "Happy?" he asked, his arm warm around my waist. "More than I knew was possible," I answered truthfully. Our wedding hadn't been what we originally planned. It had been delayed, rearranged, completely transformed. But in the end, it had become something far more meaningful than a perfectly executed event. It had become a celebration not just of our love for each other, but of our commitment to honor and protect that love, even when it meant making difficult choices. The journey to our wedding day had taught me that sometimes the greatest act of love is standing firm in your own worth. That keeping the peace at the expense of your self-respect isn't actually peaceful at all. And that finding your voice can inspire others to find theirs. As Ryan and I prepare to begin our married life together, I carry these lessons with me. Our relationship is stronger for having weathered this storm. Our commitment is deeper for having been tested. And our future is brighter for being built on a foundation of truth and mutual respect. To anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, who recognizes the patterns of always giving in, always accommodating, always putting others first at your own expense, I want you to know something: you deserve better. Your feelings matter. Your boundaries are valid. And sometimes, posting the truth is the most powerful thing you can do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had to stand up to your family for something important to you? What helped you find the courage to do it? Drop a comment below, like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for being part of my journey, and remember, your wedding day should be about celebrating love, not surviving family drama.